afternoon, evening, whatever it is. We're going to call this meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is public input. So open to the public. We have 2 minutes per person. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak?
Oh, me?
Yeah, you're oh, two.
Hi, I'm Jim Lipton. Yeah, Jim Lipton. Yep. I'm Jim Lipton, 9128 Miracle Lane in Munster. And I would just like to speak to the letter that was sent out from Mark Hines regarding the, we'll call it a subcommittee regarding parking at Centennial Park and the potential for charges to do that. So I've been thinking a lot about this, and I spent a long time on the board of safety in Munster, so it's just kind of my thing to look around the town and see what's going on. And you know, what I've noticed at Centennial Park is, for myself, I've gone out there and I've noticed that, you know, the parking lot is filled with a lot of cars from Illinois. And oftentimes, and I can't tell you what percentage of times, but on nice weekends or nice evenings, sometimes that parking lot is pretty filled up. And actually, I've seen it totally filled up on several occasions. And that's one issue that I see. The other issue that I see is that you know, the taxpayers of Munster, people who live here, you know, pay through their taxes to, you know, create this park, to build this park, and now they're paying to maintain the park. And I think anybody who's in business or understands business understands that there is overhead associated with maintaining this beautiful park. And some of the overhead would be things like the, oh really? Or like literally time? Can I have another 30 seconds?
We have a long agenda to go through, so we're limited to 2 minutes.
Okay, can I have 30 seconds? All right, real quickly, some of the overhead that you know, the town has budget constraints. You know, I know that. I think everybody knows that. And some of the things that cost in relation to Centennial Park are things like NIPSCO, the lawn maintenance, fertilization of the park. Obviously, you have staff overhead. You know, you're going to have equipment upgrades for the facilities and building expenses. And you know, if we don't try and subsidize this, then again, the taxpayers of Munster are paying, you know, the bill for all this. We have other people that aren't paying anything. And I understand that, you know, that's done in other parks and so on and so forth. I know that Highland Lincoln Center lets Munster people come in. I get that. I think that's great. But because we have constraints, you know, financial constraints, I think that we have to try and subsidize it in any way that we can. So I would be in favor of having some kind of parking fee or entrance fee for Centennial Park for non-Munster residents. Thanks so much. Sorry, I went over.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here from the public that would like to comment? Mark, I believe you have 2 emails that you'd like to.
Yes, Mr. President, I have 2 emails I'd like to read just into the record that were sent, which we put on the agenda as we post the meeting. So one was from Gina Saltzman, 1218 Tuckahoe Place. I am unable to attend the upcoming Board of Parks and Recreation meeting, so therefore I'm writing to voice my opposition to the proposal to charge a parking fee at Centennial Park. In my opinion, parks should be safe, open spaces that are available for any to use. Charging a fee to participate in activities such as exercise, play, and family time seems counterintuitive. To use the excuse of, quote, park maintenance, unquote, seems like a veiled attempt at exclusionary practices exclusionary practices, including racism. Purposely excluding surrounding communities from open park spaces is morally repugnant. Thank you for reporting my opposition to this proposal. That was number one. Number two, this is from Mike Jankovic, 10245 Cherrywood Lane. I'm writing regarding the park board meeting tonight and the proposed parking fee plan. Not sure if you recall, but I spoke at a town council meeting last year and proposed a very similar parking fee plan for Centennial Park. Unfortunately, I'm in Chicago today, cannot attend the meeting in person. However, I did want to express that I think the plan is spot on and will be successful in generating additional revenue for the park to offset the increased usage, especially by non-Munster residents and ongoing maintenance. The proposed fees are in line with what other local and county parks charge for parking. The only park that I would potentially reconsider is the issuance of one pass per Munster household. I would bet that most residences have at least 2 cars, so only one issuing one pass and making a resident pay $20 for an additional one may get some pushback. I think 2 free passes would be great, and they could pay for any additional passes above that. I did a quick survey of several residents in town that pushed me originally to go and speak to the council on this topic. In the first place, they were almost unanimously against making residents pay for an additional pass. Everyone thought 2 was more reasonable and willing to pay for an additional ones above that. Also, has there been any consideration on thoughts on the impact of people parking at the hotel or restaurants and walking over to the park versus paying the parking fee? There isn't much parking there to begin with, and I can see people trying to save a few bucks in parking in those lots. Final question, will it be a self-pay system prior renting with gate or parking and getting a ticket from a vending machine to display on dashboard? If the latter, who will be enforcing the parking permits? Munster Police. Thanks again for your work on this. I know it's been a big issue for many residents the past 2 years, but will hopefully have a positive impact on the park.
And I'll just say thank you again to those that emailed in their comments. Any other public comments? Yeah. If you could just limit it to 2 minutes, we would.
It'll be less than that.
All
No
right.
problem.
Thank you.
My name is Chuck Mamich, 1737 Laurel Lane. I'd like to voice my support of the proposal. You know, I think we jumped to a lot of conclusions about the motivations of things, but the fact of the matter is the world doesn't run on unicorn parts, okay? It takes money to make things happen. I think this proposal is reasonable and will help the town sustain operations. And for those that aren't aware, actually, you know, the youth organizations in this town, people who live here, children who live here, actually have to pay a fee to the town to use community park, to use the parks, because again, things don't happen for free. And, you know, I think it's only fair that if youth organizations are expected to pay a per player fee to use the facilities in the town, a park like this should be for those who pay for the park. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, moving right along. We're going to go to administrative matters, and the first item on the agenda is the minutes, park board minutes. We have a motion. It looks like Robin. Right?
Yeah.
And second from Mr. Rupe there. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Next is the vouchers. Paydays. Are there any questions on the vouchers? Comments?
Not here, I move we approve all 3 vouchers.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have Mr. Heinz, your February board report.
Yes, Mr. President, you have a written report that we submitted in the packet. I know we have a lot of other things on the agenda today to get to, so I'll be brief with this, but we did send out applications for athletic field permits for the year, and we've been getting those back from all the organizations. One, Pop Warner was here today to speak about that later on the agenda. We've had we did hire a new pool manager for the coming year. We're our previous one was not returning, so we're satisfied that we have someone that's coming in with 10 years of aquatic experience, so we're happy with that. We also have had our recreation staff went through a dealing with conflict webinar, which also maybe helps through some issues as they arise from time to time. So continuing to work on a new event called our Culture Fest, Colors of the World Culture Fest, which will be out at Centennial this coming year. And then just on the park and the maintenance side of things, we are working with, well, number one, lots of snow removal in the last month here, quite a bit. We were digging out for about a week after most of those snowstorms. And our two newest employees did pass their CDL test, so we're happy that they have the capability to drive any piece of equipment that the town has. Unless you have any questions, that's it for me.
I just had one on this graffiti at the fence at Kiwanis Park. Is it 3 separate occasions?
3 separate occasions, yeah, they've had graffiti out there on that fence, the white fence, the white split rail fence that's at Everett. So they're aware of it, they're watching it, you know, that kind of pops up once in a while with graffiti. It'll happen routinely there for a while. We'll usually share it once it happens routinely a couple of times with the police department, so they can actually take an eye that way as well. But then we kind of keep an extra eye that way, just because we want to be responsive to when we do find it to get it removed.
You know what is it?
I don't know. I don't think it was anything legible. I think it was just kind of kids screwing around with paint on the plastic fence.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Items for discussion. First item for discussion that we have is a Munster hot water request.
Mr. President, I have in your packets, we have a letter from Chuck, and Chuck Mann, who's the president of Munster Pop Warner, who is here in attendance, who can ask these as well, but I'm going to give you the summary first. They are, as the new president of Pop Warner, they're seeking to go to utilize Cobblestones Park this coming fall for their practice. They've previously been at Frank Hammond. We don't have a problem with that. We will permit that to be the case. Where I'm bringing this to you for your guidance and consideration is for 2 things: to house a temporary storage unit, as in the packet that you saw, something similar to this, what I have here in my hand, or something that they buy and they repaint to highlight it for their program. One, to store equipment that they currently are housing in one of the press boxes at Community Park. And the second portion of the request is they'd like to, if they can acquire either by purchasing or renting, is to erect temporary light towers out there, so they could have practice till 7:30 at night during their fall season, which, if they're really successful and they go all the way, it's early December, probably almost mid-December when they actually finish up the season. But those are the 2 main requests, and if you have any more questions on that, Chuck is also here and probably could add to that.
Just so that I'm clear, the request is for the permits to use Cobblestone Park. It's a separate request for the storage facility. Is that?
The request will be approved if they're willing to use it during the daylight hours. Because we're after dusk, we need the permission from you to exceed going beyond dusk with the light tower. So that's one of them. The second part is to allow them to store this temporary storage unit out there at the park. I neglected to say in the little drawing in your packet, there's a little corner that we've identified that's kind of up right outside on the other side of the fence from our storage yard of the Centennial Park storage barn area. That's kind of where we'd be looking at housing this. So it'd be on the north end of the park, almost up against the solid plastic fence that we have that wraps the maintenance yard for our Centennial Park maintenance area. That's where we would suggest to house that area. And I can show you that a little closer. Just in the other color. I consider this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That circle. So.
I drove by there and
Or we can
it
put it in the
will
parking
be
lot.
visible from the street. And then how do they get that there through the grass and everything without tearing everything up?
I mean,
And
the
are
truck,
they gonna pay a fee to rent that area? I mean, that's how things are going now.
yeah, I mean, that would be, a truck could drive through there and they can lift them off and get it there. And there may be some restoration. if they were to, go off the pathway to get it back there. Fortunately, we don't have any irrigation in that park, so they wouldn't have to worry about running over and crushing any heads that way. The other option would be to consider putting it over into the parking lot area if you so choose. But either way, that's something.
Why is taking up parking spaces?
And
It would, yes.
it's kind of a nice.
High demand right now.
Any idea what it is, the length from the baseball field home plate to the end of the rectangle? And the reason why I'm asking is so that baseball or softball can utilize that baseball field without having to interfere with football and vice versa.
Yes, you can fit it's about 250 feet from that home plate to where that nearest corner of that black rectangle showing the football field. So you'd be able to have simultaneous use of the ball fields and the football out there. In the springtime, we do it with lacrosse, uses the same area, and we also permit it for baseball out there as well.
Now, are we doing it still at Frank H?
They would no longer use Frank H.
Is this a more level playing field over here, probably compared to the other? I think the Frank H one was questionable. I think this is an improvement for the kids on injuries or whatever. I think we've done the lights, temporary wet lights.
For soccer.
Yeah, so that's nothing that. Yeah, soccer, the lights are no big deal. Yeah, and then this, I think, is a level playing. I think the concern is the storage facility that park there. You need to have something else to store your equipment. That's a lot of.
So what's wrong with where they're storing it now?
They can, it's a matter of just being able to have equipment like some of the pads and stuff that they actually use to practice. They'll bring them over in their vehicles, if nothing else, they're willing to do that. That's what they have had to do at Frank Hammond in the past. So, I mean, they were just trying to make it more convenient for them where they can basically be right at the site where they would be able to store it. They also would look to store their equipment there. So when they have their giveaways for all their equipment to be able to do that all at once.
Are there any other locations, or I mean, the original spot for this kind of storage facility, any other locations you could recommend other than a parking spot or that area back there?
At this location, I don't think, I think you'd have to go somewhere else. One of the requests that they brought up originally was potentially for us to consider putting it at Public Works in the yard. The challenge with there is for them to get access to it, they have to go during operational hours, so that doesn't work. Potentially a community park near the garage where we have a lot of the other leagues, maybe this would be something to consider in that area or in that parking area. On the far, in the east of the Babe Ruth fields, by those garages there, that might be another consideration. But I think that the preference would be to have it right there, but again, they'll make do, I'm sure, with I think the lights is a big aspect of it. I don't know if they.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for consideration on this. I won't rehash some of the points already made. They're all valid. The nature of the request of the storage container is primarily motivated from, you can imagine tackling dummies, things of this nature are large. And I personally, for the last 4 years, been driving around with a truck full of stuff every night. It's doable. You can do it. I've done it for 4 years. I saw an opportunity here. If we had something befitting Munster, we have an entire development going in that is shipping container based as a matter of business structures. And this would be, a well painted Munster, or no logo, whatever the board would prefer, whatever color, sky blue to blend in, green.
These are rented though, are they not?
They can be rented. Looking at the cost of it, we actually would prefer to go the purchase route. We would purchase the container and paint it to the needs of the community in terms of hiding and blending. So the primary motivation for that container is the fact that the equipment that is large and bulky would be adjacent to the practice space. It makes it easier for the volunteers that are hard to come by as it is. Most of them don't have trucks, things of that nature, so it's limiting. That's the nature of that request. The equipment is currently stored in the Seafield Press Box at Community Park, which is an absolutely brilliant space. It's marginally heated, it's dry, it's under lock and key, it's beautiful. There's absolutely no problem with that space. I'm on the Little League board as well. We don't use that space for baseball operations. It's effectively a nothing. So it serves the purpose of long-term equipment storage to a T. It's perfect. The nature of the container was to simply make it simpler to operate.
Now, Chuck, you wouldn't, if you purchased this wouldn't be a permanent thing you want that year round sitting there. Well, I mean, what would you do with it?
Yeah, I
What would you do it with off season?
yeah, that is a challenge. That is a challenge. I mean, I would of course be willing to move it. Unfortunately, I have a nice property. I have a 4-car garage, but I can't quite fit the whole shipping container in there.
I don't
So
know if the town that can get you space in their yard to store it during the off season. I don't know if that's a possibility. Or something like that.
yeah. I had asked Mark, if there was possibility at the Parks garage, that's behind a vinyl clad fence,
Right.
free from obstruction of, public eyesore or what have you. And yeah, we would be totally on board with deploying and undeploying this
Yeah.
box once a year, if that was possible.
I mean, I thought you guys live for season and then take it away for off season.
But then the grass and everything under there needs to be reseeded and, I mean, there's gonna be
I
damage
don't,
left.
there's gonna be damage if that is moved, I don't think that's a good area that's spotted at the north. You certainly can't occupy a parking spot because, as I said, parking
Well,
is.
even for practice, they need it.
Sure, yeah, just parking, all those parents are gonna want to park somewhere, no doubt. I think you'll have to, you're gonna have to find someplace else, unless you guys.
Where's the parking?
Parking is here, and here.
And this is just grass.
This is
Right.
the power station. This is the trail.
Is there any crush?
So this is all.
Of course you could.
I mean, they can't be crushed.
It's marked.
Sir, you're asking for us, for the first, move the location, right? Number 1, number 2 is the lights, and 3 is the storage, right?
I believe item 1 is already clear,
Okay.
just through
So
Mr.
what do
Hines.
we need to worry about lights?
Lights, because you're exceeding the
Okay,
closure
so
time.
we all agree that the lights are fine.
So we need a motion to approve the exception to the.
Okay, I'll make the motion to accept for the lights, to install lights that exceed the parameters that we have.
Second. We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So we really need to work on, it's just between now and when your season starts,
August 1st.
August 1st. So between now and then,
Better, yeah.
we could find a location that better suits. I don't have a problem, but I don't live there. I live by Frank Hammond, so
I live in there, but that's,
There's nothing there. I mean, there's no
Yeah, but-
houses.
well, there's
The
houses
main
across
road,
the street,
yeah.
right here.
so maybe we can figure out a way to get
Yeah, but this is tough back here.
camouflage it.
Yeah, that's
What do you want to do?
I would table it if it were me, but.
All right.
So who's gonna work, you wanna work on
So you're
it?
gonna sharpen your pencil with.
I don't have a long-term objective here.
I can certainly go take a look, put some boots on the ground and try to come up with something. I mean, if I'm hearing correctly, the board's concern is the visual appearance of said container and line of sight from residences across the park.
Not just the visual, but the overall, even if you painted it green and camouflaged it blended with the trees and you put it in that spot, and then 2 years later you remove that spot, we're gonna have to spend the money then to redo that whole area because that's gonna leave its mark.
How many
So
square
I think
feet
that
do
was
you need?
what you
Just
said.
curious, how many square feet would you?
Yeah, so we were looking at a 30-foot long container.
30 by
Container-
what, 10?
Containers are 8-foot standard, 8-foot high, 30 feet long.
So 240 square feet. You can almost build something out there permanent, and you take care of the destruction and all that stuff. That's just not my decision.
I'll personally donate to that cause.
But I mean, there's ways to do it if it's a temporary. But
Even better, I mean, if there was a permanent home.
if that's how you felt, then that's what your board felt. I mean, this is a suggestion. You could put me in that subcommittee. I'm not sure how long it would last, but you could put me.
We'll see, pending the evening's review.
Sure. I mean,
So I
study
think,
hard.
I mean, I think we've heard your input well. I mean, we have the setup for the lights is a big step in that direction. Chuck and I can continue to work on ideas and we have time till August to come back with this and revisit.
Yeah,
Once we have maybe some other alternatives.
I mean, I don't know, can you even put some bushes in front of this thing? Hide it behind the
Yeah.
bushes?
Arborvitae's?
Make it
You
more
know,
permanent,
stuff.
yeah. I like that idea.
Here's the guy who can get you the trees. Sure. The trees over there. He's the tree man.
The green thumb.
We'll have Dave come down.
Thank you for your
There you
time.
go.
Thank you.
It's a cycle. You know what?
Next item on the agenda is Centennial Park Golf Annual Report.
Andrew Johnson's here from.
Mr. Johnson, welcome.
I mean, good evening, afternoon.
I know, I think it's evening now.
Okay, good evening, President and board members. I'm Andrew Johnson, the Regional Manager for Indigo Golf. With me, Dan Ogdahl, the Superintendent at Centennial Park, and the Director of Golf, Caleb Warner. And just want to give our annual review for 2021 for Centennial Park. Do the next slide, Mark. All right, just a brief summary of 2021. Net income in 2021 was a net loss for the facility of $41,321. That is actually an improvement from the net loss of $202,579 in 2020. And despite that net loss, this was the best financial year in the history of Centennial Park. The previous best financial year for Centennial Park was 2019, when the facility had a net loss of $73,214. Now, there's a caveat to that. Centennial Park, before the building closure, was poised to post its first year of profitability ever. The combination of over $60,000 in reservation refunds and lost revenue of close to $70,000 is just an illustration of the facility's profitability in 2021. This would have also provided the first opportunity for the facility to not need funding from the town of Munster, as well as provide for the opportunity to either send profits back to the town or invest those profits in the facility's capital improvements. Total 2021 facility revenue was $1,149,577. That's up from $745,949 in 2020. Gross income, when used to subtract out the cost of the goods that we had to purchase for banquets, including food, beverages, our gross income was $916,618. And that's up from $639,750 in 2020. Golf operations, when you separate that out, also demonstrated a very strong performance in 2021. Golf operations had gross income of $430,780 in 2021. Expenses for golf operations was $343,857. Bringing net income for golf operations a positive $86,923 in 2021. Next slide, Mark. Just the graph showing the steady improvement in revenue at Centennial Park. In 2017, we were at $934,000. 2018, it moved up to $979,000. In 2019, we were at $1.1 million. Of course, COVID hit in 2020 and the facility was closed. There were limitations on banquets and the golf course was closed for a portion of the year. And that took it down to $744,000. But 2021 saw the reboost of everything at Centennial Park, where we were at 1.1 million, almost, almost $1.2 million in 2021. Bottom line performance, as I mentioned, was a net loss of $41,000 and $41,321. That comparing to where we started back in 2017, where that loss was $168,000. 2018, it dropped to $115,000. 2019, that was the previous best year. Of course, COVID hit in 2020, where we had net loss of over $200,000 in this year, net minus $41,000 for a net loss. But that was after the building closed and the refunds came. So we were looking, before that happened, we were actually looking at probably having a profit of close to $100,000 that year. And had been telling Mark that we were going to be writing a check back to the Parks Department. And then, of course, what happened in the fall, but we still look very optimistic for things moving forward. Just to break down food and beverage in 2021, total food and beverage revenue was $714,000. That's up from 2020, when we had $345,000 in revenue. And that returned us back to that upward trajectory that we have been seeing every year since 2017. Moving over to golf. Golf rounds in 2021 were 18,855 rounds. That's down from 2020, when it was just a phenomenal year of rounds, when it was 23,671. But again, that kept us in that upward trajectory of golf that we saw that's been since we've been at Centennial Park.
Was that an increase of fees and
No,
less
golf
rounds, but more money?
The price was the same. The difference was what was the big major difference was of the rounds that we had, public rounds jumped from, in 2020, we did 11,000 rounds. This time we did over 12,000 in public rounds, and rounds for membership went down.
Okay.
So the members played, but they didn't play the public rounds exceeded those, and the public rounds are the ones when they come in and pay. So that,
I understand.
yeah, so that brought us, it really boosted revenue. And also thanks to Caleb, he did a lot more selling in the pro shop. So we had more, and we had a little more outing revenue as well. So the combination of that and selling of beverages and snacks in the pro shop, we just saw a very good pickup in revenue.
Thank you.
Right. Range revenue held pretty consistent with 2020. We did $74,000 in driving range revenue, slightly down from 2020, when we did over 77,000. But if you look back to 2018, when we were doing 54,000, it's just a steady incline of what we were doing on the driving range. So we're $20,000 more in just 3 years. And now we move to Banquet. Okay, Banquets in 2021. Banquet revenue was $689,000 and $689,000. That's up from 2020, when we had revenue of slightly over $335,000. Of course, that was the COVID year. But it brought us back to that upward trajectory that which had been seen at Centennial since 2017, which back in 2017, that banquet revenue was $532,000. It went up to $614 in 2018, $695 in 2019, and then 2021, $689,000. Of course, that was actually, it would have been more than that because of the closure of the banquets near the end of the year. And now we move to concessions. The one frown that we have at Centennial Park was the concessions this year. Concession revenue was only $5,619. That's up from 2020, $1,271. A lot less tournaments that had been seen there in the past. COVID, a lot of people were not buying goods from the concession stand. We think with the relaxation of things and COVID, hopefully knock on wood, we're moving in the right direction. We think we'll return back to activities and tournaments at community park where the concession stands will be a little bit more active with purchases of food and beverages there. Net profit at concessions, we saw in 2021 had a net loss of $30,000. And it continued to decline from 2020 when it was a net loss of $23,197. And we saw in 2019 where we actually was profits were $29,151. So COVID has really wreaked more havoc on the concession stands than they did anywhere else.
What is the, what's the overhead? I mean, that's like, why even have it open for the concession? What's the overhead?
Staff, even though you had ball games that were out there, so you had to fully staff. And a lot of times we had to send staff home because no one was coming to the concession stands, and those pre-cut, the pretzels, things that you serve out there, making pre-cooking the hot dogs for, anticipation of people buying so they would be able to get them right away. Well, a lot of those became waste. People just weren't buying. So, and that's why as we got toward the end of the season, we just started cutting back a lot more to try to, because we just saw that people just, for some reason, they just were not buying at the concession stand.
And you think it's gonna change? I mean, because that's crazy.
Well, I think with more, as we progress more through COVID and people become more relaxed, I think doing more things outdoors, I think there's opportunity for it. But we're going to be a lot smarter in what we're doing as well. We're not going to be pre-cooking a lot of things. And I think what's happening is a lot of people just didn't come to concession stands. One thing that we did do in the fall, we installed a new POS system. And at the concession stands, not only do we have the desktop POS cash registers when you're there, we also have iPads that connect with those where we can actually send the staff that are out there, go out by the ball fields and, go out there and you can order right there through the iPads. Instead of people walking up to the concession stand, you're actually catching them there and it's like, oh, I can order it here. They still have to go pick it up at the concession stand, but it's just with the menus are right there, you get to be able to touch them right there where they don't have to leave away from the ball field, and hopefully that'll stop them from coming with all the coolers with all their food themselves.
That's a good idea. Wasn't there some issue with the credit card machines that wasn't working for almost all season, right? I mean, could that have contributed to that low number as well?
It played a small part in that, but a lot of the things at the concession stands were also, it was a lot of cash before. And actually, with the iPads, they have the card reader, so they can actually charge it right there at the iPad. So hopefully this year, we'll see that return to a lot of activity at the concession stands. Next is our marketing. In 2021, our primary focus was driving banquet sales revenue as this has traditionally brought in the most profit at Centennial Park. We were able to focus less on golf because golf was just having such a stellar year, which we saw start in 2020. However, in 2022, we will pivot our sales focus and lean into growing golf at Centennial Park with junior programming, range promotions, and overall golf-centered marketing. And moving to the next slide, Mark. Basically, what we're going to be doing is we have what we call a revenue playbook, which is our planning strategy. The revenue playbook plans out all of the 2022 marketing tasks, activities, strategy, and more. It is a calendar that our marketing team will work with Caleb and myself, and they will have deadlines for different marketing programs and sales and advertising that we will do throughout the year to make sure that we keep all the things informed at Centennial Park for us golf, as well as even possibly including promotions for the concession stands, just to get people more acclimated. And that's the one thing about this is, see on that slide, it's a calendar that we will be charged with. So if we say this promotion has to start March 15th, we know we have specific timelines of when this will go out, which social media platforms will be hit. So we'll be a little more aggressive in how we really promote things at Centennial Park. And the next one, Mark, and that's for our ag side. And now I bring up Dan Ogdahl to discuss what was happening on the maintenance side.
Hello, I'll just make it quick this time. Last time I went a little long. Here I go. We did a big project on one last March into April. That's the drainage project. It's in-house. We borrowed a machine from the town. It's a slow process. We don't really have the expertise into it, but it improved the drainage all the way around the first screen, which tended to be really wet. It's a combination of settling of the landfill and sediment inside the pipes, clogging them. We actually need to continue that all the way from 1 down across 6 all the way to the ditch. It's really getting bad, but that's another proposal coming forward. Another picture there is just the in-house blowing out the pipes with the air compressor. I lined up another company this year. We kind of ran into a problem where our source couldn't find the machine that he had promised us. We'll have another one. The next slide is the purchase last year of our Fairway Mower. That's a John Deere Fairway Mower, mows all the fairways. And we run that 3 times a week. And these quick pictures. The first picture in the corner is the flooding we had, and that goes back to, we probably would have done a little better on rounds, but in May we had over 10 inches of rain, and again in October we had 10 inches of rain. So I'm gonna say we lost at least 1,000 rounds because of flooding. I mean, it just rained every day. And we added tulips. I planted them again this year up by the clubhouse. The town, Mark got us some that the town had received, so I planted them in front of the clubhouse. Just a little note, I post lots of pictures on our Facebook page, but you put a couple deer on and you get 10 times the likes. It's crazy. That's all.
Thank you.
And any questions for us while we're here?
One question, and this is just not really a question, but just to reiterate, I think it's important to know that if it weren't for the pandemic, but the issue with the building and the need to close banquets and reservations, we would be fairly well into the black, correct?
Yes.
Making us the only profitable park really that we have, right?
Yes.
So that's
Well,
a
I can't
fair,
speak for the other part. I
it's a fair
can say for
statement, just a
Centennial.
fair statement, correct? So perhaps our issue, that we as a town should consider is maybe looking at that repair a little bit closer. Thank you.
You want, thank you. Yes.
But how many rounds do you think you could squeeze in? I mean, I know your focus is gonna be on more rounds. You look like you're 17, 18,000. I understand weather and 12 inches of rain is gonna have an effect, but how many more rounds? I mean, it's a 9-hole course. How many more rounds do you think you could put in there? I mean, relatively crowded right now? I mean, I could tell you that my friends all said it's pretty crowded. So are you looking at maybe 1,000 more rounds, 500 more rounds?
We're looking at probably
I mean, realistically,
1,000, at least easily 1,000, because middle part of the day there's a lot of openings right there in the middle part of the day. You have, in the mornings, you have the leagues that are going on, and you have that lull in the middle part of the day. And we're really trying to, and to be honest, a lot of people still don't know about the golf course at Centennial Park. COVID brought a lot of golfers over there, and it became, people found out about it, and I still think it's still untapped, where we can definitely squeeze in, particularly part of that middle part of the day, and that's going to be part of our marketing strategy, where it doesn't interfere with our normal play, where like our members that like to come in the mornings, they like to come late in the afternoons. It's that middle part of the day, at 11 o'clock to like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, where it gets kind of dead. We're really going to focus on trying to boost that up.
How do you
think?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm good.
Like you said, you had some fundraisers in the past going over there, tournaments a little bit. Now, are those tournaments, do you think, gonna come back without a clubhouse?
Well, we're looking at what's it's a question, Howard.
Yeah.
We've looked
I'm not
at
telling you,
we've looked at various different options that
Yeah.
we've talked with Mark about. We've looked at possibly renting a tent for specific events where, like, if we get, I know Caleb has been working very hard on securing outings that really haven't been a big thing at Centennial Park, which we think we can really tap into, because people, when you go to a typical outing that's 18 holes.
Right.
You're talking about, you're there all day long.
Right.
And people seem to want that shorter round now where they can do, and then they can socialize afterwards.
Right.
So we're looking at the possibility of potentially renting a tent that would be able to house, 100 or so people that, and caterers would come in. Of course, everything would be catered in now instead of being able to be done, but that cost would be incorporated into the charge that we would charge a group or
And
a
did we
company would
talk
like to come
about
in.
a building up there of some type for the?
For a pro shop, there's
Oh, yeah.
a RFQ out for.
Oh, is there?
architects
Okay,
for that right
okay.
now. But the staging for food and drink for outings is the most difficult part without access to the building. So I mean, that's the part that, unfortunately, I think to have that served, those costs would go up. I don't know if that places us out of the market with some of those outings, but Caleb is definitely trying. He's in my ear probably weekly, trying to figure out ways to make, with ideas and suggestions, trying to make it where we can try to make it happen. Whether it's with tents, maybe it's a prolonged tent season, and where we can save some money by not having to up and down constantly. So that's something.
One question. Yes. The two golfers here are trying to remember where we have bad memories. Is there a tiered system as far as membership, residential rate, non-residential rate, or is it just everyone pays $40 and that's just what it is?
No,
I haven't golfed there in a year.
the memberships, you would definitely get a discount, but see, the memberships you pay in advance. So you don't pay when you come back. So a lot of the members have actually pre-purchased their 2022 memberships in the fall of last year. And so now they come out, they don't pay anything. They just come up, we go in the system, they have their memberships. But for everyone else, it's a standard rate.
But there's no difference between a resident and non-resident.
No, there's not.
Since Indigo came on, that's when that changed. What it originally had separate, when Indigo came to manage it, they said we wanted one pricing across the board, and that's where it's all under one. That was the standard that I believe that they saw as they brought with them when they took over the management of the facility.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for allowing us to present tonight.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda, we have the management agreement amendment.
Mr. President, there's the recommendation in there submitted for your consideration is a second amendment to the management agreement for Centennial Park Golf. This amendment is due to the closure of the Centennial Park Clubhouse since there's no longer banquets or restaurant operations there. This agreement decreases the overall management cost that Centennial Park Golf is entitled to for operating facilities. So we had Attorney Wickland review this. He had a few suggestions and they have been incorporated into the proposal which is attached. And we are recommending that you approve the second amendment agreement for Centennial Park Golf and authorize me to sign it on your behalf.
Attorney's got this one.
Any discussion?
5,500 was just a number that you guys chose, or? I mean, I'm just asking,
That-
it is a reduction, I'm just trying to figure out.
I asked that same question. That's basically their base starting rate for a golf course only. Then it was where the banquets, how it far took it up previously. So it came down to, originally it was started out at 8,000 and that's where their bare bones fee to cover the golf course exclusively is 5,500.
Any other discussion?
Motion to approve. Second. Sorry, get a question. No, I was gonna move.
We got a motion, move to second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. On to the Z-Track Power Mower purchase order.
Yes, some equipment items here on the agenda today. We have two items, two Z-Track mowers that are in our current replacement schedule. They were included in the 2020 Towns GO bond for funding for replacement this year. And this is a proposal that we have through using the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program. So we're looking to trade in two mowers and purchase two brand new ones. And the total cost is $14,525 to do that. And we are bringing this to you with a positive, with a recommendation for approval.
I move we approve the two Z-Tracks.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
The purchase of the two Kubota front mowers, is that right? Kubota?
Yes, Kubota, these are two front mowers and snow brush machines. They're actually probably our main snow removal that we use in a lot of our remote spots, our sidewalks and pathways in the parks. These are also two hard cab enclosure units with the brush on there with the rotary broom. And it does allow us to also use them for mowing, but the major thing we use them for is the snow throwing and the rotary broom when the snow hits in our town. These are replacing two John Deere similar units that were scheduled for replacement in 2016. We're finally getting around to getting these replaced. They were included in the 2021 Towns GO bond where it was budgeted. And the total cost, each of these units comes in at $26,054.72. So we're looking for the approval to purchase two of them for a total cost of $52,109.44, which includes trade-ins of the two existing John Deere units.
They would like to know if they're for hire.
I move we approve the purchase.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And
I think you should.
the second to last item here is the replacement of the mower deck attachment.
Yeah, this is an piece of equipment that we use. It's an attachment that we use out on the golf course at Centennial Park. It's replacing, it's again, another item that was up for replacement to replace a 2008 Lastech 721 XR. And that was originally supposed to be replaced in 2019, and we're getting around to it this year. Again, included it in the 2021 GO bond. Including the trade-in, we are recommending the approval of purchasing a new Lastech XR 700 articulator rough mowing deck attachment for a price of $20,750. This is from Rebels Turf and Tractor. They're pretty much the only dealer in our territory that covers this machine. So that's why there is only one quote for this particular.
Motion to approve. Second.
All right. Should be noted it's under budget as well. Been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. The last item on the agenda.
Mr. President, you have a memo for me in your board packets. I will summarize this and allow you to open it up for some comments here and to get your input. But in 2021, as you may remember, the town council requested a subcommittee be formed to further discuss operations as related to Centennial Park. That subcommittee has met on a few different times over the last few months. The subcommittee is bringing a recommendation forward to both groups to take the necessary action to charge a fee at Centennial Park beginning later this year. The proceeds would help offset expenses to maintain, operate, and improve the park. The adjoining parks and recreation facilities and expenses involved with the Untitled parking system. The proceeds would also be projected to be a source of revenue to cover expenses for additional special events at that particular park. The general recommendation framework is as follows. A Munster household would be eligible to receive one free parking pass for the year. to allow for free parking at Centennial Park during the months that parking would be enforced. Additional annual passes per household if desired would cost a Munster resident $20 per vehicle. I put the note in there, a registered vehicle would have to be registered to a Munster address. Or another choice, they could pay their hourly rate visit for a secondary vehicle or tertiary vehicle to visit the site. Number 3, vehicles not registered in the town of Munster desiring an annual pass could purchase one at a cost of $120. Vehicles without a season pass would be charged at a rate of $2 per hour or $5 per day. Dog park memberships would include an annual parking pass. Golf memberships would include an annual parking pass. Golfers would receive a validation code for parking. Hourly and daily rates could change based upon activities in the park. So for example, a larger concert, the rates could be changed that day for that particular event. We would be using a cashless system to collect fees, so we didn't have any issues with receipting or cash handling out on site. Staff is still in the process of evaluating a couple different options with these specifics. We've recently come across a company that would be a contracted out situation to run the entire process, which is intriguing to explore that option as a way to implement this without adding substantial bandwidth to any existing town department. So this is being brought to you today to get any additional input you have. I think there's some town council members here. I think President Chuck Gardner is also in attendance to answer any questions, but at this point, we're really seeking input from you all as a whole.
Good. I'm up here to answer any questions that you might have and provide any additional information.
Anyone want to start?
I know all about it. I was on the subcommittee. And I will say going in, I did not think this was a good idea, but I've come to believe that it is because it's profitable. And it's going to pay maintenance expense that, you know, just keeps growing. And because of what's happened with the clubhouse, things aren't going to get any better. And the fact that the folks from Munster are not going to have to pay, at least for one car, and the other car I know is an issue, but I mean, it can make money for the town, pay for maintenance of the park, put into our budget. And it's the wave of the future. I mean, you see in the newspaper, the federal government wanting to charge for our national parks that we all pay for out of our tax dollars. It's not uncommon. So to me, you know, there may be some tweaks that they have to go into it to make it acceptable. And I know there's people that aren't going to agree with it no matter what. I think it's a good idea. I really do. There's a woman who wrote an email suggesting that it's racist. You know, I don't know where that's coming from, but that's absolutely asinine. Completely.
Well, no, because she's entitled to her opinion.
That's fine, but I don't
But if
appreciate.
you recall the original context of this proposal came in 2020 at a work study meeting, and you can see that on YouTube. I watched it over the weekend just to refresh my memory and context. And the original need for these meters or pay parking or whatever the case may be was really solely the Illinois people that were coming over to park in the park. So I realize what you're saying is that you personally don't feel that way, and I've known you long enough to know that that's absolutely true. And I would agree, I would believe that for you. Looking at the social media posts, you know, looking at all of the different things that are said, I believe that there is some truth to that, how it started. It is interesting to note how it got here today to this, you know, report from the original 2020 conversation about a few residents complaining about the Illinois people coming to our park, and then it morphed into the garbage. And then now here we are with this. I personally don't support this. I think it's just a bad idea. I think it's a bad idea for multiple reasons. The main reason I just, the businesses that this development, the development Centennial Village around it was never, to my knowledge, was never planned with the intention on having paid parking in the park. One thing that stuck out to me when I rewatched that YouTube video of that meeting in 2020 was Councilman Mellon commenting on how the developer would be in favor of metered parking or paid parking and would support it and probably institute it in their own section. And from what I understand, the comment today is the developer is really not in favor of this. So I would think that we should get some clarification from the developer. As far as what their comments are from this. So that's just my comments. I don't support this idea. I think it's a bad idea.
Mr. President, if I could address that, please.
Sure.
Throughout this working committee, we truly looked at the Munster Parks and Recreation mission, which is they shall provide and maintain quality parks, facilities, open natural spaces, education and recreation programs, and services that will enhance the physical, social, and emotional well-being of all the citizens of Munster and the surrounding communities. What we have reviewed throughout this process, we looked at non-residents and residents. We looked at the surrounding communities, whether they're in Illinois or in Indiana. We truly looked at what the park department is currently doing right now. Currently, the park department is charging a non-resident fee or a discount for residents for their programs, special events, and dog parks. The dog park rate for residents is $45, non-residents $120. So the park shelters, $50 for a resident, $75 for a non-resident. Tennis lessons, $10 or so more for tennis lessons. What we're asking for here and what we're considering is a user fee that takes part of a park that we can actually turn back money into the park and allow additional activities and additional programming in some of the facilities that was part of the $15 million construction project of Centennial Park. As was mentioned earlier, Munster Little League Girls Softball, all are charged at a resident rate to play in the fields. And also Munster Little League Girls Softball and those sport leagues are charged a non-resident fee to those non-residents that play in those fees to go back into the league or actually back to the park department. We do see that additional activities in the park are needed. I think the park board has mentioned that before when the hours of operation has been reduced at Centennial Park. There's some pints in the park and some other activities that were no longer scheduled. We see this as an opportunity to allow additional activities. For example, the dog park, because now it closes at dusk. If you're going out there in the fall, winter, or early spring, you're out of there at 5 or 5:30 when it gets dark. Over the years, the park department, I think, has done a really good job of trying to find independent contractors that are out there running fitness classes, dog obedience classes, and things like that. But as much as they do, they can't get everybody out there. There's been a number of times when there's dog obedience classes out there that are run without the park department knowledge. If you had some type of pay for parking system out there, you'd be able to recoup some of that revenue that independent contractors are making and put in their own pockets. It is very important that we work with the businesses at Centennial Village. We have had conversations with Matt Kimmel. We have a phone call out to him now to meet up. We were waiting until after this meeting to talk more to Matt about what the project is. Those restaurants, and I've talked to a number of representatives, they're experiencing people in the park parking in their parking lots, restaurants right now. So they have an issue. We need to talk to them. And the Centennial Village development is a partnership between the town of Munster and the developer. So there's no way in the world that we're not looking at and wanting to work with the developer on that. And to that extent, the hospital across the street in the Veterans Memorial. Equally important is the residents of Cobblestone, Twin Creek, Somerset, and Briar Creek. that they enjoy their park, they can walk to the park, and we don't have additional cars parking in those neighborhoods and walking down the bike path and things like that. So those are things that are important to us. Those are things that we looked at, and those are things that we still need to consider.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And I was talking, I understand what Dave is saying here. I think we have to understand in the world we're living in now, everything we're purchasing has gone up. Salaries have gone up. Just expenses of doing business in any form has increased to the stage that doesn't mean that it doesn't happen to the town of Munster. Those costs are going up. They can't just turn on and say, this month we gotta raise taxes or next month. They're on a budget, annual budget. And I think the importance of maintaining we're putting that much money into those parks, maintaining well-maintained, well-groomed facility and so forth. My question is, and the fees, I understand that's now part of doing business. Everywhere I go, I'm paying more, or there's inputting a fee of some type. My question is, these individuals that came to this project over here and probably spent millions, I'm not in that field, to put up, to put these restaurants together, and they're expecting the people that come there to use it. Now, once you get turned off one time, I can't find a parking spot. Usually I wouldn't come back, okay? So I think I like what I heard from you, that you're gonna sit down with the developer, try to work out some type of thing. These are people that invested in the Munster. I want others to invest in the Munster, and I don't want this to be like something negative. They may not get the parking or something like that. So if you could work with them to come up with some ideas, I think it would be a good idea what you're talking about.
I agree with that, and I think when we've had Mr. Kibble in here for one of the meetings that we talked to him about. We've had him in previous times. Also, we see this as if the performance stage is utilized more often, those restaurants and those businesses will actually get more business and more activities. Centennial Village is a partnership between the town and the developer, and in turn, the developer and those businesses. So there's nothing that we want to do more than work with the developer on this project.
I think it would be encouraging to show to the board that these businesses are on board with whatever you come up with, an agreement. So they're comfortable staying in there. The last thing I want to see is people pulling out of there because of that issue.
Understandable.
Well, and they're not, the development's not even sold out yet, so you have to.
Right.
I mean,
That's
is it
what I'm
going to
saying. I'm
affect future, people leasing in those buildings, the ones that are not even built yet? Is it going to affect, there's lots to consider there. I
And how
guess
much land is even there left? I don't even know. How many
Right.
more parking spots are going in?
Right.
Or is there a discussion of some type of
The
a
interesting
garage
thing
of
is,
some type, a parking garage or some type? I don't
the
know.
interesting
That's
thing is,
expensive.
Robin and I did a little experiment last summer.
Yes.
Robin and I did a little experiment because we really wanted to hear everyone's opinions and look at the parks. So we did, how long? 30,
I documented
I did
8
about-
weeks.
I did
Every
about
day.
6 weeks in the summer, the busiest times, and where we spent individually time in the park. And there was not one time, could you recall one time
Yeah,
that the park was full? Parking was full.
yeah, there was always parking.
There was always
Well,
parking.
wait. I went there one time and I couldn't find parking.
Yeah.
Talking about the north side or the south side?
By the
The north, by the restaurants.
side.
Yeah, we went there for six,
I'm
I went there
not
for
saying
6
that,
weeks. I just feel like that we are picking on something that's a non-issue because of what happened with COVID. Of course, people were coming across, in 2020, this started with people coming across the state line because Illinois parks were closed. Parks were closed. In 2020, there was a huge increase. So if you look at the numbers from 2020, they're absolutely skewed. If you look at them from the beginning of 2021, same thing. The parks in Illinois didn't open up until the spring of 2021. So that was driving a lot of volume, so to speak, into our parks. I just didn't see that in the summer of 21. It didn't, the volume wasn't there. You know, I don't see this as the moneymaker. Trust me, I reviewed this report that you sent. I don't see this as the moneymaker that you intended to be.
I think this board would also want to see this outside company, how would they generate, what do they make, what do we make off of it? And I'm sure the town's more tuned to that, exactly what these companies are
Well, there's only one, but
charging.
I think there's now another one that serves. I mean, we got the numbers on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just so the performer that the park board has in front is a Munster share of $274,000 as a net revenue to the department. Even if those numbers are 50% off, a net revenue of $135,000, I think is something that we're talking about that could be something positive to the park board and something positive to the park staff if they're trying to do concerts, special events, or something else. So I do think, and when we start talking about number of cars that came through the parking lot, the April count was over 40,000 cars went through the parking lot. So that was close, 40,000 cars over the course of 30 days. That's quite a bit.
Was that count before or after the roundabout? Was that count
That's
done?
done after the roundabout. After the roundabout. And we broke it down into banquet attendance people, golf people. Now, the count did go down in the month of October. One count went down in October, 29,000 cars. Again, 29,000 cars going through that parking lot. And the performer that we did, we only counted 20,000 cars. And then we said only half of those cars would be residents. So we really took a conservative approach to this. We also realized we did not take counts during June, July, and August. We think those months probably would be higher than October. We still looked at 20,000. Now, one of the performers does put a peak month increase in, May, June, July, and August. But again, I think what we're looking at is a chance for the park department. We're looking at trying to do concerts out there. When the last one concert that we did last year, I don't know, there was a lot of good feedback from that. And I don't think we're looking at, that was a very, it was a more expensive concert to have. But I do think that amphitheater has a lot of potential to really create a connection to the community, bringing people from Munster together to one spot, much like Community Park does with the youth sport leagues, bringing people together. And that's why we say surrounding communities. This is something the park department has always been built on, allowing non-residents and inviting non-residents to participate in our programs, whether it be the pool, whether it be tennis lessons, whether it be special events. This is about the surrounding communities being able to come here and participate and do events and participate in our events throughout this community. Yes, Mr. Replay.
Oh, Councilman, just a couple questions. What's your timeline on this? I mean, I was asking Dave because he was on this subcommittee. What's the intention of this right now? I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't look as closely as I probably could have, but it was Valentine's Day, and I probably would have get killed if I would have watched too much of that. And then I got 3 inches of rain coming. So besides all that coming, I mean, are you looking for question and answer? Are you looking for this open dialogue, or are you just presenting and just we can get back to it at a later date, or?
What we wanted to do is we had the subcommittee meeting a number of times. We wanted to bring this back to the council and to the park board. I have talked to individual council members, so they're aware that this is being proposed. Ideally, it would be great if the park board would say, hey, yeah, these fees are in line with what we want to look at. We'll approve it. We're not going to hire a company right now because there is some due diligence that staff has to do with regards to the parking meters on our own versus the independent, the privatization of that park. But as we saw, and as we see with Indigo right now, when they took over the golf course, how they become much more business-like orientated. That's what we saw when we were looking at doing the parking meters and the enforcement ourselves, and purchasing the meters, doing the enforcement, putting a credit card in, putting a paper ticket in your car and having us walking in the parking lot, checking enforcement measures, to now what this company does is license plate readers at the entrance and exits of the park. You drive in, you get a time frame of 15, 20, 30 minutes that you can park, drive around and go whatever, you don't have to pay. But once it hits the 30-minute mark, once you go out, the license plate reader reads your car on your way out. If you're there for 2 hours, then there better be a record of how if you paid, $4.
Do they send you a bill if you didn't pay? I'm just asking.
They will send you a ticket for $45 or so
And then I'm assuming it goes through our legal counsel, which is Westland, to prosecute or whatever as a normal ticket, right? I'm assuming.
what would,
I
through
don't-
this
I
company,
don't
they
know.
would be, what we're looking at right now is they would be in charge of the enforcement also, which
The company
the
would.
company would, and then we would get a percentage of the enforcement also. The percentage of the enforcement, any kind of ticket revenue is not included in any pro forma. Ticket enforcement will be costly if we do it ourselves, because now we, just like you're
I
starting to
understand.
mention there.
I agree. That's why I didn't know, and it didn't necessarily, who did this pro forma? I mean, I know when you do rate increases, normally there's companies and accounting firms that do that if you want to raise your sewer, your gas or whatever else. So
We did the one that was in-house by us actually purchasing the meters, purchasing the hardware and stuff like that, and then us doing the purchase, the ticket writing and registering cars
So
and whatever.
we did it in-house. We said it's gonna be 20,000 and we think that 20,000 is the right number to put based on the ticket counts that we got in October and April.
Right, we went 20,000 cars, but we're gonna take half of those cars are residents. We started at 40,000. We said, guess what? We don't think 40,000 cars are gonna go through that gate every month. We're gonna take 20,000, and then we're gonna say, out of the 20,000 cars, 10,000 are non-residents. And again, that's our numbers.
So I would say, I mean, just in general, I'd say no Munster resident. I know that it's in here that says one. I don't think any Munster resident should pay to go to their own park. That's my personal belief. Is that gonna be a non-reverting fund that you're speaking of, so that when you're saying at 135, or even if it's half of that, it doesn't go to, and look, I get it. We make money. Public Works doesn't make money throwing salt. I mean, it's a unglamorous job. They have to plow streets and it's all expenses. So I'm just asking, just from a standpoint, does it go non-reverting? Does it go to general fund and then it just gets spent to wherever? Or have you made that decision? I don't know if you've gone down that road.
It's been talked about briefly. There's probably a parking meter fund that it would go to. I think there's a state of Indiana account that would go there, but it has been earmarked towards parks and recreation activities. It might go back to pay for the mowers that you just purchased for the golf course. Because while Indigo does operate very efficiently with the management and everything else, there is some hard costs that the town is still responsible for out there. So it would go back to the park department. In a lot of our discussions, it's been talked about bringing it back into the park and special events and things like that cost money to run. Having concerts out there isn't a cheap thing.
I agree that the amphitheater is underutilized, besides the fact that people plug in when they steal it and I get to listen to it on my back porch. But I mean, I would love to see it, but I mean, is there gonna be exemption? I mean, and I'm not trying to exempt everybody out of this. I'm just asking, we have the beer in the park, right? We still have that going. I think we have a counter. Are those folks gonna be exempt? Or are they not gonna be validated? You go to University of Chicago, you get your your validated parking sticker. Or are we just sticking with dog park, golfing, driving range? And I can't think of anything else. Like if we have witches and brooms and all that, pumpkins in the thing, are we charging
The
people
way
to go in there?
the way I would look at it is if you had park programs out there, like the witches and hay rides,
I'll screw it up.
I think it's an opportunity for the park department staff to become creative in that and maybe not even charge admission to that, so they don't have to have people there taking money the day of, and they could funnel people right into doing the activity.
We don't
So-
charge for those events. Those are
Okay.
Oh, there's,
Well, they gotta buy their.
they have to buy their tickets to do their participate, like their.
So maybe there's a creative way through, if people are coming there, they don't have to, because there might be a line buying something there. For the concerts, I think it allows, especially if there's concerts that are not alcohol related, and again, it's Wednesday night concerts or whatever else. Now it's a chance, so you don't have to set up fencing to charge people to get in to watch the concert. It's just being done through the parking methods. If it is events that have a fence because you have a alcohol being there, now you're capturing some people that are just coming into the park. And again, when we get into the special events and charging and everything else, I haven't been out there in the last 2 years for one of those events. So, and I don't think we've had those events in the last couple of years. So again, I think this is the ability for the park department to have an existing budget, existing revenue that they then can turn back into. How can they operate those events more efficiently without as much staff being present and able to kind of save them a little bit of time and effort.
And I'm sorry, I'll quickly be done. I don't mean to get in the weeds, I gotta go to another meeting in 5 minutes. There's, on this report, I don't know what it is, it says option 2, looks like that.
Yeah.
There's a merchant fee of 4.5%. I mean, and it just seems, that seems steep for credit card processing.
Well, that's actually standard.
Not 4.5%.
Well, we're talking about,
It's American Express or rewards.
it's probably a little bit high, but again, what it is we're talking about small dollars being charged to credit cards. And it's my understanding, and maybe Mr. Sauer's going to address this better, but it's my understanding that the smaller amounts you charge on a credit card, you get a higher percentage taken out. Now, they did say it'd probably be more like 3.8 or something like that. But again, we asked us to be as conservative as we could, because again, there's a part of it. This is we want to make sure that we're not overstating what the possibilities
I
are.
understand, and just, I have some experience in credit cards. It's generally it's what card you use. So it's Discover, if it's American Express Platinum, that's the higher fee. If it's your debit card, those are 0.25%, 0.5%.
These vendors are always going to round up.
Yeah, but I don't want to go down that rabbit trail. The next thing is preferably if you're choosing between Munster staff, in my opinion, or a vendor, I give it to the vendor, because they have all the problems, because they're going to have all the issues with, hey, I put my money in and you swipe my card and now I got a ticket for 53. No one here wants to deal with, I mean, I wouldn't want to deal with it, and that's what's going to happen, because people question their credit card purchases to begin with, and I don't think we're equipped as a staff or a town for that matter to arbitrate all those issues. Let them go fight the $53 fine, and if we get half of it, congratulations. And if we get, I mean, I'm just making numbers, but if you're going to charge them, I would want no part of the maintenance of it. If someone runs over the kiosk, if someone hits the license rater, because that's all, I mean, even though you state in your pro forma that it's a one-time cost, it could be a multiple cost if someone runs into it. I'm done now.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Are there any other parks that we can think of locally, not connected to a Great Lake, that charge a fee?
Rogers Lakewood Park in Valparaiso.
Say that again.
Rogers Lakewood Park in Valparaiso has a daily fee for cars. There's some county parks that, depending on the events that they're running, will charge. I believe Ross Township Park has charged before, and that's in Maryville off of Broadway Avenue. It is, again,
So we would be just with the first of our kind in our immediate area to charge a fee to park in just a standard park.
yeah, but I would caution you about saying it's a standard park. I think the town of Munster has over 423 acres. I think you have mini pocket parks, you have neighborhood parks, you have community parks, you have greenways, but then you have a regional park. And I think Centennial Park does fit into the regional park, which is, you have you have revenue producing facilities or golf course and things like that. But it's also a very large park that you offer fishing free of charge. There's a lot of times there's photography, you have limousines, you have big cars coming in there.
This is
There's
different than
fitness
Wicker
there.
Park, though. I mean, but that's not really different from Wicker Park, though.
I'm not so sure that there's the high school groups, wedding receptions, quinceaneros, or the birthday parties. Those things go to Wicker Park for pictures. For proms, homecomings, and things like that, you do have that type of situation coming. And again, it's great. I'm very happy that those people come. If it's high school graduation parties or proms or whatever else. But in a month, and a Saturday in May, it's not unusual to see 2 or 3 limousines driving through, parking in there. And again, it's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, it's just something that Centennial Park is a little bit different than your typical neighborhood park. You have fitness stairs. People come. I saw my high school baseball coach that lives in Thornton. Saw him at one of the concerts. Him and his wife were walking up the steps. I said, what are you doing here, Mr. Anderson? I come here every day. This is what I would do. I walk the steps. This is a great thing. It's fine. It's great that Mr. Anderson from Thornton, Indiana, or from Thornton, Illinois, comes over here.
Is he gonna still come?
Yes, and Mrs. Long from Lansing's gonna come here also. And she walked with three of her ladies. They live, in fact, what she said, she lives by Lansing Country Club. She can take her bike now. And guess what? If this in turns incorporates or encourages more people to ride their bikes and get connected to Centennial Park by bikes and walking, the same thing about maybe local residents will use more bikes and walking to get to Centennial Park. You do have a formal gardens at Centennial Park. In the back, it's a great area. So again, I think that Centennial Park is a little bit different, and I think it can be termed as a regional park, just from the standpoint it's much larger than 50 acres, and we do attract people from Illinois, Highland, Cherville, Maryville, all over the place, because it's a regional type park.
That was a lot of my question, but
Yeah, you're done. Anyone else?
see what what respect I get.
Anyone else?
Robin? I've already discussed.
Yeah, I think we're discussed out of it. Thank you for your time. All right, with that, we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you everyone for coming in.